I am going to show you how to form sentences correctly. For some reason, this is often a mystery for students, and I'm not entirely sure why. I think that is because you either learned it in elementary school or middle school and simply forgot over the years, and some bad habits creep in, but we're going to fix those. The ingredients of a sentence are at least one subject and one verb set and a complete meaning. For example, a little boy threw his brother a ball over the fence. First, I'm going to break this down into the parts of speech of the clause. This is only one clause, one simple sentence, because it has one subject doing the verb, the action to an object. Now, sometimes there is only a subject, verb, and either direct object or subject complement, and that's fine. But I'm just going to show you quickly what the parts of speech are for this. A is an article. V is also an article. Articles point to objects. In this case, a boy. Little is an adjective describing the boy. Most people have no problem with that. Boy is a noun, but it's acting as a subject in this case because it's the boy is doing the action of throwing. What did he throw? A ball. That's the direct object that the subject is directly throwing. He threw the ball to his brother. The brother is the indirect object or the receiver of the object. And where did this happen? Over the fence. This is a prepositional phrase. Now, this is just one simple sentence. It's one clause, even though it has all of this stuff in it. There is only one set of subject and verbs, just one subject and verb here. Now, there's a difference between phrases and clauses. A phrase does not have a subject or verb set in it, and it serves a descriptive function. For example, over the fence, that's where the ball was thrown. It's a prepositional phrase. A clause has a subject and verb set in it. This distinction is crucial for understanding the four sentence patterns, which is the very most important thing for you to know and understand for editing and improving your writing. The sentence patterns are made up of types of clauses. Again, there are only 4 sentence patterns in the English language, which is sometimes very surprising to people, but I find it quite comforting. You only have to learn 4. There are many, many different ways of putting together these 4 patterns, many more than I'm going to show you here, but if you stick to these 4 sentence patterns, your writing will become very clear and very straightforward, which is a good thing. The basic building block of a sentence is a clause. A clause contains a subject and verb at the very least in order to qualify as a clause. A phrase does not contain a subject and verb, so by itself a phrase would always be a fragment. In order for a clause to be a full-blown sentence, it must have a subject, a verb, and a complete meaning. There are 2 types of clauses. The independent clause, which qualifies as a sentence. It has all 3 ingredients necessary, a subject, a verb, and a complete meaning. The second type of the clause is a subordinate clause. It is a clause, but it has a meaning it has a subject and verb in it, but it has a subordinate conjunction attached to it so that it cannot stand alone as a sentence because it does not have a complete meaning. The 4 sentence patterns are made up of combinations of independent and dependent clauses. Of course, a sentence must always have at least one independent clause in order to be called a sentence and not a fragment. A simple sentence is just one clause, only one set of subjects and verbs. For example, Harry cooked his dinner. Harry is the subject acting on the verb. What did he cook as dinner? In this case, that's the direct object. However, there can be more than one subject and more than one verb working together in a simple sentence. Harry and Michael cooked and ate their dinner. It is still just one clause. There isn't another entire clause attached to it in any way, so it's a simple sentence. A compound sentence has 2 independent clauses or complete sentences on either side of coordinating conjunction. In other words, those 2 sentences could stand alone by themselves with periods behind them, but sometimes we choose to join 2 clauses because we're joining 2 ideas that make sense to go together. 2 sentences can be joined to make a compound sentence with Fanboys, the coordinating conjunctions, for, and, nor, but, or, yet so, and semicolon. Some people use the acronym fanboys to remember them. For example, I walked around the mall all day and my feet are sore. One of the comma rules, yes, there are rules for using commas and we're going to get to those, is a comma before a coordinating conjunction in a compound sentence. Or this could be, I walked around the mall all day, my feet are sore. This is how to use a semicolon. We'll also get back to that in more detail. People would choose to use a semicolon is because there is a close relationship between the two ideas. But again, these could be two separate sentences altogether with a period between them. But in order to have sentence variety, sometimes we choose to join two equal ideas together to make a compound sentence. Complex sentences have one independent clause that can stand alone by itself and one dependent clause that can't. A dependent subordinate clause must have the independent clause to complete its meaning. Dependent subordinate clauses are joined with the independent clause with the subordinate conjunctions such as when, because, after, while, since, that, which, who, etc. You need to look up a complete list. It's easy to Google one. For example, because I walked around the mall all day, my feet are sore. This is the subordinate clause. Because I walked around the mall all day is a subordinate clause because it's not complete in meaning. Because I walked around the mall all day, what happened? I don't know. What happened is my feet are sore. This is the independent clause. This would be the main part of the sentence here. This is the subordinate part. Of course, the traditional way to make a complex sentence is with this construction. My feet are sore because I walked around the mall all day. But because these patterns allow for sentence variety, we can take the main clause and put it at the end. Both versions are equally valid depending on the meaning. The fourth type of sentence is the compound complex sentence. They're a combination of the two above sentence patterns. It's a compound sentence with a subordinate clause on it. For example, because I walked around the mall all day, my feet are sore, and I cannot walk any further. My feet are sore and I cannot walk any further is a compound sentence, but it also has a subordinate clause on it. One rule of thumb is never to make a sentence longer than 3 clauses. This is 3 clauses or 3 sets of subjects and verbs. I walk, feet are, and I walk again. Those are the sets of subjects and verbs. So there are 3 clauses. Don't write sentences with more than 3 clauses, otherwise they get too long and unwieldy. It's another reason why to learn these sentence patterns. Here are some more examples. This is a complex sentence. The human voice is produced in the larynx, a section of the throat that has 2 bands called vocal cords. That is the conjunction here. Has is the verb. Now, when that is used, often there's not a separate subject. It serves as both the subject and the subordinate conjunction. But it's still 2 sets of subjects and verbs that has. Really, the subject is vocal cords, but it's back here. The thing to remember is this piece here that has 2 bands called vocal cords could never stand alone by itself. It would be a fragment. Need the whole thing, the main clause and the subordinate clause together. So just to go over these quickly one more time to recap, a simple sentence has 1 independent clause. Sounds have frequency and pitch. This is a subject and a being verb, not an action verb, with subject complements, that's descriptions or adjectives of what sounds are. Compound sentence is two independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction, in this case but look back up at your fanboys. And finally, the complex sentence has one independent clause joined by one subordinate clause. The one thing that all sounds share is that they are produced by vibrations. So, the one thing is, that's the independent clause. That all sounds share, the subject verb there with the subordinate conjunction that. And there's another one here too. So in this case there are two separate subordinate clauses. The one thing is, that's the independent clause, and the subordinate clauses are that all sounds share and that they are produced by vibrations. Finally, we have the compound complex sentence, that is a compound sentence with a subordinate clause in it. Now in this case we have some sounds are pleasant and others are not. That's the compound part. We can take out the subordinate clause like that and we would have a compound sentence, but if we put the subordinate clause back in, then we have a compound complex sentence. I hope this is clear to you. Please look up exercises either on the internet at OWL and other places, or get yourself a handbook such as the one I suggested in the syllabus.